She was a hard-working immigrant on the fast track to success.
She went full throttle into everything she did.
She was going for her doctorate.
I really wanted to get it.
She was on the brink of even greater things.
Until one morning, she didn't wake up.
She's not breathing.
There is no sign of a struggle.
What could have caused this woman's death?
Was it a single act of desperation?
She might have overdosed.
There are 2 empty pill bottles.
And what looks like a handwritten note.
Was there too much on her plate?
Or will the investigation reveal the sinister truth?
Forensics doesn't lie.
Nobody's accusing you, you're not under arrest.
The lights come on for detectives.
I'm invoking my right to remain inside.
September 24th, 2015. It's just before dawn in Litchfield Park, Arizona, a family-friendly suburb of Phoenix.
It has a small town feel as opposed to the city of Phoenix.
It's a pretty quiet suburb neighborhood with families, good schools, and great people.
It's like the jewel of the West Side. If you want to raise a family, that's the place to do it.
Noni, it's time to get up.
But even in the quietest suburb, no family is immune to tragedy.
Oh my God, Noni! Noni, wake up!
Police get this frantic 911 call from a man named Elias Udachime.
He says that his wife, 37-year-old Shanoni Udachime, is unresponsive.
I was trying to wake her up from getting he's ready for school.
He couldn't wake his wife and she's not moving.
Is your wife breathing?
The answer appears to be no.
I need ambulance here, sir. I need ambulance. Okay, we got him en route.
He was scared.
Do you know how to do CPR? No, I don't. How do you do that? Okay, I'll tell you how.
With the guidance of the dispatcher, he starts performing CPR.
Put the palm of one hand in between your breast, interlock the other hand, and you're going to do compressions. You're going to do them really fast. Keep your arms straight. You're going to go like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Something's terribly wrong.
Originally from Nigeria, Noni and Elias Udachime emigrated to the United States to make a better life for themselves and their children.
Their number one priority was providing a stable and profitable life for their kids.
They were seeking a better financial situation that could also help support the family that they were leaving behind in Nigeria. The Udachimes were pursuing the American dream.
The young family first settled in Virginia.
Elias worked in IT, and that was a really great job for him, which paid well.
IT is always in high demand, so you pretty much can go anywhere.
But Noni also wanted to do her part to support the family.
She enrolled in pharmacy school.
Education is extremely important in Nigerian culture.
A lot of immigrants see higher education as the pathway to progress.
And pharmacists were also in high demand.
A career in pharmacy was recession-proof, and it would allow her to make a good living to support her family.
And it wasn't long before she got recruited.
Noni is very smart, and a lot of people recognized how brilliant she is, especially in the pharmaceutical area, and she was offered a job in Arizona.
Phoenix?
Okay, I know it's a big move, but it's a great opportunity.
We've made bigger moves in the past.
They knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I think they were willing to take that risk if it meant a greater reward on the other side for their entire family.
So the family moved to Arizona, joining hundreds of thousands of immigrants chasing the American dream.
1 in 8 Arizonians originate from another country,
including a cousin of Noni's who lives in Phoenix.
They end up buying this beautiful home in the Litchfield Park neighborhood.
This particular community, the immigrant population is pretty present.
There were good schools and lots of family-friendly outdoor activities.
And the family quickly settled in.
Elias was also doing well. He found a job in the IT industry.
It's still one of the hottest jobs out there.
But Noni was always striving to do more.
She decided to enroll in a PhD program. I mean, this was a woman who was so motivated and driven, and she wanted to further that education, and it would only make her more profitable in the industry as a whole as well.
It means a lot more late nights, and I'm gonna need help with the kids.
Don't worry, we'll be fine.
Really?
We'll be fine.
They kind of live the American dream.
They really wanted to build wealth for themselves and their family.
And by the fall of 2015, all those long hours and late nights were on the verge of paying off.
She was finishing up her doctorate.
Noni was a rising star.
She was enthusiastic about the future.
But now, Noni's bright future is in jeopardy.
Noni's husband is on the phone with Litchfield Park 911.
He is saying that he found her unresponsive in their bed.
Okay. And you're not going to stop, okay?
They told him to do the CPR till they got there.
Nice. Yeah, I'm here. Just continue doing the compressions, okay?
He's making every effort to revive his wife.
That's funny. Keep doing those compressions.
He doesn't give up until paramedics arrive.
They move Noni to the floor.
But it's too late.
When they take over, there just was no way to save her.
Noni is already dead.
Dispatch Unit 47. I got a DOA, black female.
And the couple's bedroom may contain a clue as to how she died.
There is no sign of physical violence, no sign of struggle.
But on the nightstand, there were some unmistakable signs.
There are 2 empty pill bottles and what looks like a handwritten note.
37-year-old Nigerian immigrant Noni Udachime had built a great life for herself in suburban Phoenix.
She has a loving family. She has 4 beautiful children.
They were the motivating factor to go get her PhD.
She had a vision for what she wanted for her children and for herself.
But now, that bright future is gone.
After Elias called 911 and reported finding her unresponsive, EMTs pronounced her dead.
And first responders have reason to suspect she may have taken her own life.
There's no immediate signs of physical marks on Noni's body. It looks like she just passed away in her sleep.
They discover pill bottles that are near the bed and also what looks like a letter.
Could that letter be a suicide note?
It will be up to the medical examiner to make the official ruling.
An autopsy will still need to be done to determine the exact cause of death.
In the meantime, homicide detectives arrive on the scene and open their own investigation.
You want to go in with an open mind. You don't want to try to fit a theory. You just want to try to collect the facts.
The detectives begin by taking a closer look at the 2 empty pill bottles on the nightstand.
One is for lorazepam. It's like Xanax. It's used to treat anxiety and sleep disorders. The other is cyclobenzaprine, which is a muscle relaxer. These 2 pills could lead to a deadly overdose.
The question is, did Noni take enough of each of these pills to cause her death?
One thing is certain, though. It's unlikely that Noni accidentally overdosed.
Being educated in the field of pharmacy, she would know what a toxic level of medication would be.
But does that mean the note by her bed is a suicide note?
It's addressed to my dear husband.
In the note, Noni is apologizing for all the hurtful words that she said.
That part sure sounded like a suicide note.
But it's far from definitive.
It doesn't suggest that she was planning to do anything to harm herself.
Typically, when people are leaving suicide notes, then they end it with, "I can't take this anymore," or things of that nature. And that's not how Noni ended the letter.
Rather, the letter ended on a hopeful note, saying that she planned on building a healthy and happy family.
This is concerning to detectives.
As detectives finish up in the bedroom, Elias makes arrangements for Noni's cousin to come pick up the children.
Come pick the children up for me. Yeah, they don't know what's happening.
He doesn't want the kids to see everything that's going on.
With Noni's cousin on her way, Elias speaks with detectives about the moments leading up to his 911 call.
Elias explains that he and Noni get up, they get the kids ready for school, and then they get themselves ready for work. But when his alarm went off this morning, she didn't wake up.
Hey, Noni, time to get up.
He kept nudging her. She's not moving.
Noni! Oh my God.
That's when he dialed 911.
She's not breathing.
I didn't know what else to do. I don't know CPR.
Elias is distraught.
And when the detectives mention the letter and the pills they found by the bed, he totally breaks down.
He said he was afraid that this might happen.
Why is that?
Because I'd upset her.
Elias admits that they had been arguing.
He said it was all about Noni wanting to move her mother from Africa to the United States.
It's not uncommon with immigrant families to have in-laws living with them.
But Elias wasn't thrilled at the prospect of having his mother-in-law move in with them.
He says that she actually lived with him a couple years back in Virginia, and that caused a lot of tension.
However, Noni was very close to her mom and wanted to help in any way that she could.
And I told her, I said, it's too much. You already have a lot on your plate.
She had been taking on extra shifts.
She was always getting home late.
In fact, Elias tells detectives that all the kids were already in bed when Noni got home the night before.
Long day?
It's not over yet.
Instead of going right to bed, she wanted to get the meals prepped for the next day.
Elias says he visited with her in the kitchen for about 30 minutes.
I'm gonna go ahead and go upstairs and go to bed.
Okay, I'll be up soon.
All right.
Then he went upstairs and took one of his sleeping pills.
I must have fallen asleep before she came upstairs.
He didn't see her again until he tried to wake her up.
Has Noni been known to take sleeping pills?
Sometimes.
He did tell detectives that from time to time she would use some, but it was not a lot.
He also said that she'd gotten the muscle relaxer a couple of weeks ago. She had some pain in her lower back, but he wasn't sure if she'd taken them regularly.
And he's certain she wouldn't unintentionally overdose.
Elias tells them she was an experienced pharmacist. There was no way that this was some sort of accident.
He thinks that it's far more likely that she purposely took those drugs.
I know my wife was under a lot of pressure, but I should not have given her such a hard time about her mother coming to stay with us.
Elias started getting really emotional.
Before they end their interview with Elias, Noni's cousin Beverly arrives to pick up the children.
They had Elias taken to the station to give a formal statement and to give him time to collect himself while they spoke to the cousin.
She obviously wasn't there when the incident occurred, but she still may be able to share some useful information about Noni's personal life.
Do you mind if we ask you a few questions?
Not at all. I'm not sure if I can help.
Beverly explains to the police that they weren't very close.
They hadn't had much contact since Beverly left Nigeria, but recently connected when Noni and Elias moved to Arizona.
They were just getting to know each other again.
They were part of the same group of Nigerians that lived in Arizona, but she didn't have a lot of information for police about the history of Noni and Elias.
Anything with her state of mind?
Did she seem stressed or anything?
Well, maybe.
There was one thing that Noni's cousin knew.
She says it is possible that Noni was struggling with deep depression.
She had had kind of a troubled childhood.
Noni's father abandoned them when she was very young.
Investigating the mysterious death of Noni Udachime are trying to determine if the 37-year-old Nigerian immigrant took her own life.
They found 2 empty pill bottles next to her bed alongside a note.
These are all suspicious circumstances.
And now, her cousin has told detectives that Noni may have been struggling with deep-seated depression.
Noni's father abandoned them when she was very young.
She was forced to grow up very quickly.
As the oldest, Noni felt responsible for her mother and her younger siblings. That's one of the reasons why she became a pharmacist.
It was a high-paying, stable career path, and she knew that it could support her mother and her siblings back home in Africa.
And on top of all of that, Noni was also pursuing her PhD.
She complained about it?
No. She just always seems so exhausted.
It could be that everything fell on her shoulders and was getting too much.
In that mental state, she could have found that the only way out was to die by suicide. And so that was a plausible theory.
Plausible, at least to the detectives, but not Noni's cousin.
She was shocked when Elias called her.
Even with the possibility of stress and depression, she knows Noni loves her family. She would not take her own life.
She mentioned the issues with her husband?
Not really.
Any fights? Anything that you're aware of?
No.
She describes Elias as a very nice person, and they seem very happy.
She says from what she knows, they had a good marriage. She didn't know of any issues.
But was it all a facade?
Noni was a very private person and really didn't share a whole lot of information with Beverly at all as far as her personal life.
So she doesn't know exactly what's going on in the home, but she does know that Noni talks about the kids all the time, and she really enjoys being a mother.
Thank you for your time.
Hoping for more insight into Noni's mindset, the detectives head to the pharmacy where she works.
The manager says that everyone was surprised to learn of Noni's death.
She was supposed to be at work, but she never showed up. No one could get a hold of her.
They assumed that maybe the kids were sick because Noni didn't just miss work, but they didn't think anything more than that.
They had no idea she was dead.
It wasn't until Elias called the pharmacy and told them that they found out.
They were further surprised when Elias said that she had taken some sleeping pills.
Why is that?
It just doesn't seem like her.
The manager explains Noni was very precautious about taking any medicines.
She said this went from everything from prescriptions to even Advil. So to them, it was unfathomable that Noni would take prescriptions that were originally prescribed to Elias.
She seemed particularly stressed to you?
Maybe a little because of all the hours she's been putting in.
Noni had been taking a lot of extra shifts.
Noni was known as a floater. She had a home pharmacy, but she would travel to other locations.
So maybe she did need a little extra help sleeping.
But her manager also doubts that Noni would accidentally overdose.
She is a pharmacist. Noni knows the safe dosages to take.
Did she ever talk about how things were at home?
Just small talk mostly.
She didn't say a whole lot about her relationship with Elias.
She did say something the other day that kind of surprised me.
She had actually disclosed some marital issues.
She did mention she was thinking about getting divorced.
Detectives investigating the sudden, mysterious death of Chinoni Urachime have just learned that she and her husband Elias may have been heading for divorce.
You hear that almighty D word, divorce. All of the lights come on for detectives.
If Noni was trying to leave her marriage, that may have given Elias motive.
Elias is a person of interest at that point.
So detectives head back to speak to Elias, who has been waiting at the station. But when they arrive, there's a message waiting for them.
It's from Noni's mother in Nigeria.
She had heard about her daughter's death, and she wanted to offer up some information to detectives.
When the detectives follow up with Noni's mother, she has plenty to say.
She's adamant that it was not suicide.
She knows her baby, and she said her daughter would never take her own life.
She says Noni loved life and would never hurt herself.
There's no way she did this on purpose. She had so many plans for her future.
She was finishing up a PhD program.
She was excited about the future for herself and for her children.
She loved her kids. There is no way that she would just leave them.
She also says that Noni had been making plans with the family.
She recently spoken to her brother and planned on sending him money.
Noni's mother is certain that her daughter would not be making future plans if she intended on ending her life.
And if Noni didn't end her life, her mother claims to know who did.
She points the finger at the husband.
Elias did this. I just know it.
She saw something in this man that she simply didn't trust.
She was really the first person to point squarely at Elias and say, he's done this.
In fact, according to Noni's mother, Elias had even attempted to kill her daughter before.
Noni's mother referred to a prior incident that occurred in Virginia. And in that particular incident, Noni and Elias were driving and they began arguing.
Noni had told her mom that they had been arguing over money.
And while they're fighting, Elias turns the car quickly and runs into a tree.
On purpose?
That's what Noni said.
Noni told her mother, Elias tried to kill me.
Was she hurt?
Well, no. But it really scared her.
The crash had turned out to be relatively minor.
Neither one of them were seriously injured.
But Noni was convinced he was trying to take her out.
And her mother thinks that things went further downhill once Noni and Elias moved to Arizona.
Noni's mother says Noni was texting her brother the other day, and when referring to her husband, she said that his mind was hateful and evil.
It goes to her mindset as far as what concerns she had about Elias.
She was so afraid of him.
Her mother said that's one reason Noni wanted her to move in with them.
Mom was thinking, if only I could have got on a plane earlier, if only I had have maybe moved and relocated there earlier.
Because according to Noni's mother, the troubles between her daughter and Elias continued.
She said there was another incident back in February.
Noni's mom doesn't know a lot of details, but the police were called.
Okay, thank you.
After getting off the phone with Noni's mother, detectives follow up on her claims.
Detectives reach out to the police in Virginia to pull some records. And sure enough, police responded to a single vehicle crash into a tree.
But rather than an attempted homicide, the report was routine.
It wasn't anything that was escalated because there weren't a lot of injuries.
Detectives also searched the files in Arizona for any records related to the incident in February.
Turns out Elias was arrested on a domestic assault charge.
The couple was arguing. Noni blocked the doorway. Elias got loud. He got aggressive.
And when she tried to call 911, he got violent.
When she pulled out her phone, he punched her.
Noni was ultimately able to call law enforcement. They responded and they placed him under arrest for domestic abuse.
And that incident landed him in jail overnight.
But after that night in jail, nothing happened.
Noni at the time didn't want to go forward with the charges.
This is not new. In many instances, you'll find where the victim and the perpetrator start talking and then emotion is brought back into the picture.
That's what happened in Elias and Noni's case.
He convinced her not to press charges, that he's going to change.
That's typically the thought pattern of victims. I don't get hit all the time. It's only when we're in certain situations or when tempers flare. And so most times you will find that victims won't press charges.
Coupled with her co-workers' claims that Noni was considering a divorce, the domestic violence arrest just proves to the detectives that they're on the right track.
It's the beginning of a pattern. Elias doesn't get his way, so that's when the physical altercations begin to happen.
But does this mean that he killed his wife?
For the moment, it's only a hunch.
Any investigator that has investigated domestic violence-related crimes sees exactly where this is going.
But when the autopsy report comes in, the medical examiner's initial findings do suggest an overdose.
They did find drugs in Noni's system.
They were at potentially toxic levels.
But there was more.
According to the medical examiner, that's not how she died.
Noni was strangled.
Evidence found at the scene. Detectives investigating the death of Noni Urachime initially considered the possibility that the 37-year-old wife and mother could have taken her own life.
There were no visible marks on Noni's body.
There's this note, there's 2 pill bottles. To the untrained eye, it would appear that this was a suicide.
But when the detectives get the autopsy results from the medical examiner, the findings aren't consistent with suicide.
Sometimes what appears on the surface or what is obvious is not. And that autopsy revealed the petechia in the eyes, which is a compromise of the vascular system, the capillaries and the veins.
That's when the blood vessels pop under the skin and leave little dots, like stippling.
We see that petechia or hemorrhaging as a result of strangulation.
So it kind of contradicts the whole story. If she overdosed, why is it showing up?
For the detectives, the answer is clear.
What originally looked like this open-closed suicide case now is looking like a homicide.
Even if it looks like it was a suicide, forensics doesn't lie.
Given everything they've learned about Elias and Noni's marriage, detectives have little doubt who is responsible.
Strangulation is a very common occurrence in domestic violence-related situations.
And we know that there was a domestic violence incident shortly before this occurred.
And according to Noni's coworkers, she was contemplating divorcing Elias.
So by the time the detectives get the cause of death, they are locked in on him. They just have to be able to find the evidence and the information to prove it.
They start with Elias himself.
He'd been waiting at the station to talk more in depth with the detectives.
They put him in this interview room. All of this stuff is par for the course. It's what investigators do.
He's thinking that this is an open shut case. He's just trying to wrap up some loose ends, things like that.
But that's not exactly what the detectives have in mind.
He's left alone with the cameras running.
And after stewing in the room for a little while, his demeanor starts to change.
It is clear that he knows that something might be going on.
He becomes suspicious.
He pulls out his phone and he makes a call.
He calls his lawyer, which I think that's pretty savvy.
No, they told me that they need to take me to the sheriff office to give me to question me. So that's why I asked him, do I need a lawyer? They said, you don't need a lawyer. So, but I called anyway.
During the call, Elias brings his attorney up to speed.
Yeah, they were asking me questions. I was telling them what was going on. And afterwards, they now said that I need to go to the sheriff office for further questioning. I told them that she was so angry that I told her at that body that her mother has to come. And that's only what I could possibly think the reason why she would do that. And she also left a note, a letter.
He seemed very calm, very matter-of-fact about the whole case.
Which is surprising considering the situation Elias was in.
You can see that it's starting to head toward charging him potentially at that point.
Okay. So what do we need to do here?
And when the detective returns to the interrogation room, Elias takes his lawyer's advice.
I'm invoking my right to remain silent.
Elias completely shuts down.
Detectives tell Elias he is not under arrest. They just want to ask him a couple questions.
And then he says, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
I can talk to you without my attorney.
Detectives finally sit down with 51-year-old Elias Urachime to speak with him about the death of his wife, Noni. He refuses to talk.
My lawyer said I should not answer any question.
Every citizen has that right. However, as an investigator, when someone lawyers up on you, the lights go off. There's some notion of guilt there.
As a police officer, you do wonder why somebody would not want to share if they didn't have anything to hide. You can't hold that against a person because that is absolutely within their right.
And if you don't want to give us a statement, that's fine. At this point, that's completely fine. But that doesn't relieve us from keeping you here and letting us do our job.
They're pretty confident that he's their man.
They're ready to charge Elias with this.
So prosecutors take the case against Elias to the grand jury, hoping for an indictment.
They said he felt he was losing control of her. She's getting more educated and she didn't need him financially.
There was so much strife in the marriage that Noni had planned on leaving.
And on the night of September 23rd, Elias had taken matters into his own hands.
Elias wasn't willing to go quietly.
She underestimated how evil he was.
What are you doing?
Just take these.
Why?
Because I said take them. They'll help you sleep.
But
Prosecutors believe that the night of her death, he forced her to take those pills.
But his plan to make her death look like a suicide didn't quite work.
When he saw that the muscle relaxant and the sleep aid only made her drowsy but did not immediately kick in and kill her, he decided to ensure that she died.
So he carefully put his hands around her neck and strangled her.
That's where the trauma to her neck that the medical examiner found comes into play.
Prosecutors allege that Elias then tried to cover up what he'd done.
He sets out a letter that she'd most likely written him after a previous argument, and he waits until morning.
Then he calls 911 and puts in this frantic call for help.
She couldn't wake up. This allegation that she had committed suicide. It was only supported by his statement.
But would it be enough to raise reasonable doubt?
The holes in the case were concerning. I don't think there's a way that they could ever prove that he forced her to take those pills.
Elias doesn't believe that they have enough evidence.
But after hearing their case against him, the grand jury moves to indict Elias Urachime on murder charges.
He ends up being charged with second-degree murder based on the prosecution's theory of the case.
However, that's all it was, a theory.
Evidence is circumstantial. There's no physical evidence that could link him to this.
There were some concerns from the prosecution point of view as to whether they felt comfortable that they would get a conviction in a trial. No matter how solid you think your case is, the juries are unpredictable.
So with the trial date approaching, the prosecutors reach out to Elias and offer him a deal.
The defendant is not willing to risk being charged with murder too. The prosecutor's not willing to walk away with nothing by trying a murder two case. Where do you land? You land in the world of manslaughter.
At the 11th hour, Elias decides to take a plea deal for manslaughter.
In exchange for his guilty plea, Elias is sentenced to just 5 years in prison.
They just didn't want to take a gamble that the evidence was so circumstantial. Something is better than nothing.
But for Noni's family, it's a devastating blow.
Many family members believe Elias got away with it.
It's got to be excruciatingly difficult to know that somebody that killed your loved one, that was responsible for the death, for essentially destroying that family. It would be very difficult to be able to accept why he was given such a good deal.
Sometimes justice doesn't hit a clear home run.
And there were no winners in this case.
The 4 kids were placed into foster care and eventually adopted.
My heart, of course, always goes out to the children. In domestic violence cases, they always end up being the unintended victims.
It's the devastating collapse of a family once on the edge of success.
This is literally a family that has been shredded apart, a mom that's gone, a dad that is now estranged, children that have been placed in foster care and now are adopted, and it's so cyclical.
There's really no absolute closure for anybody. In the end, we really lost a driven and caring member of this community and a mother.
Noni represents the everyday person, the everyday Black woman who's striving to be a good mother, be a good daughter, be a good sister, and be an excellent person overall. She had dreams, she had hopes, she had a vision for what she wanted for her children.
She was on the brink of greater things, and the world needs more people like her.
What to do with how they feel, the negative emotion that they feel, it becomes anger, it becomes rage.
I was not going to let that go about what happened to my father because I couldn't move on. What you do in the dark will always come to the light, always.
February 27th, 1995, Baltimore, Maryland. It's early afternoon when a cable TV technician goes to the home of a new customer.
When the cable technician showed up, the door was open. She let herself in. And she wished that she hadn't. She saw that there was a man on the couch inside the apartment who was slumped over. She feared that he was dead. There was blood everywhere, on the walls, on his body.
The technician rushes to call 911.
And shortly thereafter, the EMTs and police showed up to the scene. It was immediately clear to EMTs that this victim had suffered severe injuries which ended his life. His head had been brutally smashed in with blood and brain matter everywhere. They actually couldn't tell if the damage was as a result of blunt force trauma or a gunshot wound.
When the police enter the apartment, they're able to do a quick scan and they find his wallet. And with that, they were able to confirm that the victim was in fact Leroy Lincoln Sr.
Who knew Leroy and spent time with him really enjoyed being around him.
In the 1960s, Leroy's easygoing charm and quick wit caught the attention of a woman named Geraldine Parks.
My mother, she's from Trap Hill, North Carolina. She is also one of a large family. She was raised in the country where you're waking up with roosters crowing. Totally different than my father's background. He was born in the city.
Geraldine had been married as a teenager, but that relationship ended shortly after the birth of her daughter. When she met Leroy on a trip to Baltimore, she saw a chance to make a fresh start.
She wanted to be free. She wanted to experience life. At the time, she did have one child, but she just wanted to get away. And my father kind of represented an exciting life in Baltimore. My mother told me that she loved the way my father made her laugh. He was a natural comedian, and she was looking for a good laugh, someone that could make her feel a certain way, and he fulfilled that. So she moved to Baltimore to be with him, but she found out she was also pregnant by him, which led to my other sister being born.
Over the next decade, Leroy and Geraldine's family continued to grow.
I have 2 older sisters, then it's me, and then I have 2 younger sisters and 2 younger brothers.
Leroy and Geraldine, they had the American dream. Everything was good for them. They built a life together, with Leroy having a job at the MTA and Geraldine being at home with the kids.
Leroy continued to stray from some of the teachings of his Jehovah's Witness faith. And at first, Geraldine was all for it.
They used to be the party house, how much fun they used to have. Everybody from the neighborhood would be there. They used to have a great time.
There was always alcohol flowing, weed in the background. This was back in the 70s. It was just live. We had the party house.
Then, in the late 70s, the Lincoln family suffered a tragedy that would change all of their lives.
When Geraldine gave birth to their 7th child, the child was born, stillborn, and that really devastated her.
My mother went into this deep depression. She saw no way out. My father's mother pulled my mother to the side and told her, you know, you're gonna see him again one day. You know, and she started telling her about the promise of a new order, the promise of a resurrection. Once you turn your life over to Jehovah, your loved ones will be brought back to life. And my mother held fast to that deeply. She started going to the hall, started dedicating her life to Jehovah, becoming a Jehovah's Witness. And she gave my father the ultimatum, this is what you're gonna have to do, otherwise we can't be together. And my father loved her. He wanted to be with her. My father kind of got back into it, and they realized that they felt like they were living in sin. So they both got baptized, and they got married and started living their lives as Jehovah's Witnesses.
Her dad was more of the laid-back kind of guy. I think he didn't really care so much about the faith. But for her mom, it was everything. And it ruled their household. Can't do this, you can't do that. You can't associate with this person or that one.
We went from being a party house to every Sundays, every Tuesdays, every Thursdays, we in the Kingdom Hall. We couldn't drink no more. You can't be around people that's smoking no more.
This was a challenge for Leroy. He was doing this for her, and he wasn't quite ready to adjust at the speed that she was.
Things started becoming challenging. My father wasn't having that no more. He was not having it anymore. My father had a problem with smoking cigarettes. He couldn't stop smoking. So they kicked him out of the hall because of that. You know, they kicked him out of the religion.
While smoking was prohibited, divorce was also forbidden. So Geraldine tried to keep the marriage going, but still followed the religion's rules of disfellowshipped former members.
When you're disfellowshipped in the Jehovah's Witness congregation, you're basically shunned. Nobody can talk to you. If they talk to you, then they're gonna be shunned as well. My mother couldn't speak to him no more. We as kids couldn't even speak to him anymore. He lives in the same house. We can't say, hi, Daddy, what you want for breakfast? None of that.
I think he just felt alienated. He did feel like a stranger in his own house.
I can imagine that must have sent him into a really, really dark place, which wouldn't have helped his addiction to alcohol and cigarettes.
According to his loved ones, Leroy turned to other vices as well.
He was unable to get his needs met, intimacy, closeness, all of those things were removed from him. And so he started to seek for those things elsewhere. Leroy was in and out of different relationships with other women, cheating. He would leave the house and eventually come back.
I think it took Geraldine so long to consider divorce is because it is a huge sin in most faiths and most religions to get a divorce. I think that was probably her last resort.
In January 1995, the couple realized they've had enough, despite Geraldine's faith. She kept their children and their home, and Leroy moved into an apartment.
I think Tia's dad wanted his family. You know, it seems like he was a good father. I always felt that he still tried to maintain relationships with his kids.
Now, 1 month after he moved out, Leroy is dead at just 51 years old. And Baltimore police want to know why, and if his lifestyle had something to do with it.
Once my father left the Jehovah's Witness religion, he started doing his own thing. He got another girlfriend. He got with friends who did drugs. He started smoking weed. That weed led to other drugs. Jehovah's Witnesses will call it the wrong crowd. And they will say that he started hanging with people who, well, there was a scripture, 1 Corinthians 15:33. Basically, that was drilled in our heads that bad associations spoil useful habits.
51-year-old Leroy Lincoln Sr. has been found murdered in his apartment, and authorities are looking for clues. The damage to his skull is so severe, they can't even tell yet if he was shot or beaten to death.
Because the victim's wallet and cash were still there and there were no signs of forced entry, detectives ruled out burglary as a possible motive for the murder.
And there was no murder weapon at the scene. They didn't find any fingerprints, they didn't find any DNA, everything was spotless.
Detectives do find something else, however.
There was drug paraphernalia that was found in the home. There was crack cocaine.
They find a pipe, and they also find a partially smoked joint.
The police went around to ask questions of the neighbors, but he lived in the hood in Baltimore, so nobody saw anything.
That's not uncommon for people to really not want to get involved or say anything to the police. However, one neighbor does recall hearing some strange things the night before. It sounded like someone was knocking on Leroy's door late the other night. Shortly after he heard the knocking, he heard the TV come on, and then he heard some type of commotion happening. At the time, he didn't think much of it. He thought maybe Leroy's just a night owl, but now he's having thoughts of whether or not he heard the murder.
Unfortunately, Leroy's neighbor couldn't provide any useful details. To investigators, the drug paraphernalia suggests a scenario that's become all too common in the area.
In the 1990s, Baltimore was really known for high crime rates. In fact, it was higher than the national average. Baltimore was averaging about 300 murders a year in the 90s.
Many of the crimes were shootings, fueled by a cycle of revenge.
They were drug shootings. You sold on my turf. You killed my brother. You killed someone in my family. You stole my drug pipeline. It's a never-ending in that manner until we find a way to solve the drug problem.
Leroy's murder is the 44th in Baltimore that year, and it's only the end of February. His daughter, Tia, learns about it that evening.
I was doing laundry, watching the news like I always do. The headline of the news was there was a homicide in East Northern Parkway. They said the victim was a former MTA bus driver. I was like, what? So I stopped what I was doing and I called my father's phone. No answer, no answer, no answer. I'm blowing it up, no answer.
When someone does finally answer Leroy's phone, it's a homicide detective.
And I said, look, is my father there? Is my father there? What is going on? He said that my father was killed. I lost it. I fell to the floor, I screamed, I cried, and all of that. When I got myself together, I asked him, I said, are you sure, was this like a mistake? I said, look, my father had no enemies. He was a jokester. He don't go around robbing drug dealers. He don't go around beating people up. I was just trying to digest the fact that he had just been murdered. I didn't immediately think that it was anybody. I was just like, who would do it?
Investigators are asking the same question. And now that they are in contact with family, they speak with more loved ones. They begin with Geraldine.
She denied actually being there or obviously laying a finger on him.
She swore that she had nothing to do with his murder and that she was home with her daughter that night.
However, she admits she's never forgiven Leroy for his shortcomings.
She let detectives know that they were going through a divorce and that he had cheated on her multiple times and that they were not in a good place with each other. Jolene disclosed to police that Leroy had been smoking crack for years and that this was one of the key points that caused their separation. She wouldn't be surprised that some of the drug connections that he has is probably the cause of his murder. She claimed that it was possible that one of the women that he had cheated with was responsible, or one of the boyfriends or husbands of those women could have been responsible for his murder. The police also speak to the couple's 18-year-old son, who was still living at the house with his mother. Leroy Lincoln Jr. confirms the story about his father's drug addiction. He also has an alibi for the night of the murder.
Authorities hope the autopsy will reveal a fresh avenue of investigation.
The medical examiner's autopsy report sheds a little more light on the case. They determined that the cause of death was blunt force trauma. The beating was so severe that it had shattered Leroy's skull into pieces. Whoever killed him seemed to take out a lot of pent-up rage. Given the past stories of drug problems with Leroy Lincoln Sr., it is not out of the question that someone who he had been involved with in that life is responsible for his murder. Unfortunately, investigators have no suspects in the case.
Tia worries her father's murder will become another unsolved case in a city overwhelmed with violent crime.
To be honest with you, in the city of Baltimore, you lose a family member, that's it. Investigations, 50% of them are not even solved. I was expected to just pick up and just move forward and live my life. But after he was killed, we had to plan a funeral.
Leroy was quite a beloved member of his community and was very well liked by many people around the city. But
my mother insisted that that casket stay open. She wanted everybody to see what had happened to him. The funeral director said the only way we can do this open casket, somebody got to buy him a hat or something because there's no head here. So my fiance went to the store and bought him a skull cap.
the funeral home actually has to ask a pastor who was there for another funeral to come over and lead the celebration for Leroy's life.
But my mother deliberately told the officiant that she didn't want anybody to speak over him. She didn't want anybody to say anything nice about him. I was sitting there in tears like, this is really going down like this? After the viewing, my mother decided that my father was going to be cremated as soon as possible. She didn't want a tombstone or anything like that. She didn't care what they did with his ashes. She told them to flush him down the toilet. To this day, I don't know where they are. My father doesn't have a tombstone. Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe in going to grave sites like that anyway, but I always wanted that to do, at least for Father's Day or birthday or something, but nothing. I kind of do regret not speaking up on requesting his ashes because he deserved better than that.
To Tia Lincoln, her mother's behavior isn't just strange, it's suspicious.
I had a nagging feeling that something wasn't right, but I was trying to swallow that away, trying to ignore it.
But Geraldine's actions are difficult to ignore.
About a week after Leroy Sr.'s murder, Geraldine moves back to North Carolina with her daughter and her son, Leroy Jr. This is odd because she had just moved into the home about a month ago.
Her lease wasn't up or anything, and she just left so quickly after he was murdered. Why did that happen?
As the months pass, Tia is increasingly bothered by her mother's actions and inaction.
Why did you not ever call the police to try to investigate to figure out what happened to him? I understand y'all were going through a divorce, but damn, nothing? She never did any of that?
Unfortunately, Tia seems to be the only member of the family still interested in pursuing the case, and detectives are unable to find any proof of her suspicions.
There was no forensic evidence developed in this case. DNA only occurs mainly if someone spits on you or has sex with you. This is not the type of case.
It was a low probability of the case ever being solved. After about a year, the police department shelved the case, and eventually it was considered an unsolved murder, then transitioned into a cold case.
That pissed me off, and that's when I was just like, look, something got to be done. Otherwise, I can't move on with my life.
She was really very sad and heartbroken about her father's death. It wasn't as a thing where you could see her going in the corner and crying. It was more like, yo, I want to know what happened to my dad.
She didn't want to accept what police had to say, and she was really frustrated with Baltimore police.
I had to figure out what had happened to my father. So after I got myself together and I started playing things in my head, I wanted the detectives to conduct a thorough investigation, and that means questioning everybody in his family, including my mother, Geraldine.
When the anniversary of Leroy Lincoln Sr.'s murder passes without any new leads, his daughter, Tia Lincoln, decides to act.
After it seemed like nothing was being done, a year later, I started to investigate the case on my own. I didn't have money to hire an investigator. I started talking to his friends, trying to see if he had any enemies. I started talking to his former girlfriends to see if they had any hidden agendas or vendettas against him or anything like that. Everything just kept leading back to a feeling that I kept trying to swallow, kept trying to ignore. It just kept coming back to mama, mama, mama. Maybe she had something to do with it.
The first red flag was Geraldine's handling of Leroy's funeral and her abrupt move back to North Carolina. The second comes when she returns to collect his insurance money.
When my father was killed, even though they were going through a nasty, bitter divorce, she was still technically the beneficiary on his life insurance policies. She broke her neck to come up here to get his life insurance because the checks came to my house, but she wouldn't come up here for any other reason. That seemed suspicious. I think they only came up to about $60,000, and she was like, "Where's the rest? Where's the rest?" She was extremely pissed off about that. What happened was, we didn't find this out till later, he had stopped paying on it, so they had canceled that particular policy.
Geraldine also cautions Tia to stop bothering the police with her inquiries into Leroy Sr.'s murder. She says that Leroy was a dirtbag and deserved to get whatever he got.
I think her mom's hostility and this resentment that never showing sympathy or remorse about what happened to him, it created a bigger suspicion.
That suspicion ultimately unlocks a crucial memory Tia first thought was a joke.
We were raised to believe that Daddy does not care about us. Daddy cares about his drugs more than he cares about us. He cares about his other girlfriends more than he cares about us. So we grew up with huge animosity towards him. My mother would always constantly, these weren't jokes. You know, I just wish somebody would take him out.
She remembered hearing her mother say that she wished that someone would kill Leroy Sr.
My father only had one person that hated him, hated his entire being, and that was my mother.
Tia summons the strength to confront her mother.
I flat out asked her, did you have anything to do with it? And of course she denied it. She said no, and she was really insistent this time, look, get over it, stop asking me that, move on.
Tia doesn't give up, but instead digs deeper. She doesn't think her mother would beat Leroy Sr. to death on her own.
I thought that if she was involved, who would she get to do her killing? One of the people that she would have had to recruit to do this would have had to have been my brother Leroy Jr. And the reason why I say that is because they were close. I was going off of a hunch. I didn't know for sure.
A hunch isn't enough for Baltimore investigators to act on. And years continue to pass with no movement on the case.
After 7 years, I finally came up with a plan to get the detectives to, at the very least, question somebody.
She got to a place of desperation where she didn't see any way out, and she needed answers. So she decided to do the only thing that she thought she could do.
I knew that at the time that my brother had a girlfriend who had a drug problem, and I also knew that she had been in and out of jail. So I was gonna play like I was her. So I went to a payphone, I called the detectives, disguised my voice, and told them that I had information about an unsolved homicide. They were like, well, what information do you want to provide? And I said, my boyfriend did it. I said, he came in the house and he said he killed his father. He had blood on his clothes. I said that, you know, I was dying of AIDS. I wanted to clear my conscience. I didn't leave a name though.
That was a huge, huge risk, but it did pay off. It forced the police department to take her father's case seriously. Had Tia not made that call, she would have never found out what happened to her dad.
About the murder of her father, Leroy Lincoln Sr., authorities tracked down Leroy Jr.'s former girlfriend.
Detectives go right over there, but she seems surprised to see them. She says that she never made that call, but the details of the call are actually true. She tells police that she did overhear a conversation between her then boyfriend, Leroy Jr., and his mother, Geraldine Lincoln. They were discussing having Leroy Sr. murdered.
The girlfriend's story about the night Leroy Sr. was killed actually matches a detail Tia had made up when she called investigators, and reveals a third conspirator.
She said that my brother came in the house with blood on his clothes and confessed to killing his father with his friend John.
Leroy Jr., he had a best friend named John Cross, who he grew up with, and John came with a pretty lengthy criminal record himself. So it makes sense that if Leroy was going to do something like this, he would definitely bring someone like John along with him.
For the first time in 7 years, Baltimore police have a solid lead. They asked North Carolina police to pick up Geraldine Lincoln and her son Leroy Jr. and hold them for questioning. And locally, they begin searching for Leroy Jr.'s alleged accomplice.
He was a certain time away on a burglary charge. They went to his cell and everything, and they questioned him about a murder. He was like, I don't know none of them. I don't know nothing about anything.
After getting nothing from John Cross, detectives traveled to North Carolina to interview Geraldine and Leroy Jr.
When they accuse her of being the mastermind behind her husband's murder, she denies having anything to do with it. What she does say is that it doesn't matter who killed her husband because he deserved it.
The detective said she went into a 6-minute rant of how bad he was. You know, he was this, he was that, he was disgusting, he was blah, blah, blah.
The way Geraldine Lincoln described her husband was not pleasant. I believe he used drugs. He may have used drugs in the presence of his children. I do know there are allegations that he molested his daughters.
According to Geraldine, what happened to him was payback for all of the pain that he inflicted on others.
But who delivered that payback? Investigators turn up the pressure by showing Geraldine 3 incriminating photos.
The first is a photo of Leroy Jr. The caption reads, "That's Junior, whose father he and I killed for Miss Geraldine." It's signed John Cross. The second photo is of John Cross, and this one too has a caption. This is John. Junior said he hit Junior's father over the head while they smoked weed. This photo seemed to be signed by Junior's girlfriend. The third photo is of Geraldine, and on the back of this photo it says, "This is Miss Geraldine. She set up the murder of Junior's dad." It was dated the same date as the photos that were signed by John Cross.
There was a little bit of deception because they were not written by the actual witnesses or suspects. They were written by the detective. That said, what they wrote were facts that were already proven by the investigation so far.
The ruse works. After years of denial, Geraldine finally breaks.
When confronted with those photos, Geraldine Lincoln eventually admitted that she wanted her husband, decedent Leroy Lincoln Sr., murdered, and admitted a degree of participation in that she wanted him dead.
She's like, yeah, I knew about the murder. Yeah, I knew that they killed him. Yeah, they got the axe out of my house. She said, well, how is that a crime? What did I do wrong? Just because I didn't say anything? Just because I didn't stop them? And just because I talked about it for years and pumped their heads up to do it, I didn't do anything wrong.
She was charged with first-degree murder because she wanted it to happen, planned it, and solicited people to do it. She was also charged with conspiracy.
Investigators try the same approach with Leroy Jr., but he doesn't take the bait.
The game that the detectives played failed. Even after seeing the photos, he still denied that he had anything to do with his father's death. But then the investigators tried their last trick. They got a tape recorder and played parts of their interview with Leroy's mother. Those clips had been edited to make it sound like Jerlene had implicated her son in the murder of his father.
Once they played him that tape, he put his head on the table and was just like, all right, I'm gonna tell you everything you wanna know.
He claimed that he had been physically and psychologically abused by his father, and that his father would beat all of the children with extension cords and other things that he found around the house. Leroy Jr. even suggested that his father had forced him and his brother to sell crack cocaine. Leroy Jr. believed that his father had been trying to destroy their family for years, and that by February 1995,
After helping his mother, Geraldine Lincoln, cover up the murder of his father for over 7 years, Leroy Lincoln Jr. is now ready to confess everything.
Leroy tells police that he, his mother, and John Cross had been plotting to kill his father for months. The night of the murder, Leroy Jr. said that he and John met at Jerlene's house. They got the handle from an axe that she had lying around, and they went over to Leroy Sr.'s house. When they got there, they knocked on the door, and Sr. let them in. They led him to believe that they were there to smoke marijuana and watch TV with him.
They were sitting there drinking and smoking 1 minute, and he said that he looked over at John. They made eye contact, and he said that John had acted like he was gonna go to the bathroom or something, and he could see out of the corner of his eye that John had the axe like this. And he said he hit my father with the axe.
Leroy Jr. says that after the murder was completed, that John set his father's body back on the couch and they left. But obviously they hadn't closed the door on their way out. Leroy Jr. says that he dropped John off at his house before he went back to his own home, where he told his girlfriend what had happened.
Geraldine Lincoln, Leroy Lincoln Jr., and John Cross are all charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder.
In late 2003, Leroy Jr. is the first to be tried in his father's murder. The prosecution's case is depending upon the testimony of his ex-girlfriend and his own taped confession. The defense team argues that Leroy Jr. never had anything to do with his father's murder and that his confession was coerced. They painted Leroy Sr. as an evil man who was addicted to drugs, who forced his children to sell drugs, and who was physically, mentally, and sometimes sexually abusive.
But there is no evidence whatsoever to prove Leroy Sr. was abusive.
I'm just gonna say, look, he never touched me. He never acted like he wanted to touch me. I mean, he never looked at me like he wanted to touch me. But that rumor was spread throughout our family, and that was part of the reasons why we were groomed to hate him.
Tia takes the stand for the prosecution.
Lincoln, Tia Lincoln.
And do you have a brother named Leroy Lincoln?
Yes.
What, if anything, did defendant Leroy Lincoln Jr. say he wanted to do to his father, your father?
He didn't say, okay, I want to kill him. You know, it was more so of him being around, you know, when the conversations were being talked about, you know, as far as my mother, and I can't remember him specifically saying, okay, well, I want to kill him, you know.
The defense tries to pin the murder on Geraldine, arguing only she wanted Leroy Sr. dead.
How many times would you say altogether your mother brought up the same subject, wanting to get the father out of the way, get be nice to get the money, get him out of my life, get it to myself, whatever she was saying. How many different times did that same tape come up?
Over 15.
Over 50 times?
Over 50.
On September 25th, 2003, the jury reaches a verdict.
They find Leroy Lincoln Jr. guilty of the conspiracy to commit murder, but they acquit him of the first-degree murder charge. He's sentenced to life in prison with all but 25 years suspended.
I mean, my brother, he had no remorse from it. He was not sorry for it. I even asked him that, are you sorry? Do you regret it? No, not at all.
A week later, Geraldine opts for a bench trial, which means she only faces a judge, not a jury.
She was charged with first-degree murder, even though she didn't lay a finger on the victim. I had to know I had to dot all the I's, cross all the T's. I had put on all those witnesses who heard them planning and talking about and wanting to kill Leroy Lincoln Sr. There's no direct evidence. No one saw her do it. No one said, please kill him, I'll pay you. But there was enough there to convict her of a conspiracy.
The court agrees. And on October 1st, 2003, Geraldine is found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy. Like her son, she receives a life sentence. But the 2004 trial for their alleged co-conspirator, John Cross, yields a much different result.
Unfortunately, he was found not guilty by a city jury in Baltimore.
John was acquitted because, again, he had an excellent attorney, and also there was no physical evidence linking him to that crime, and also without eyewitness testimony of one of the murderers that was there was no case. He walked. Haven't heard from him since.
It was a cold case, which already has a high degree of difficulty in steering convictions. I'm still unhappy with the fact that we did not bring Mr. Cross to justice.
After just 8 years in prison, Geraldine is released on parole. 2 years after that, Leroy Jr. is also released.
Revenge is never worth it. Both people suffer, the person who's killed and the person who killed them.
The fact that she would go to such an extent to get rid of someone just shows you how ugly hate can really be. You know, she would have been better served just letting him be a dad and moving on with her life and finding new happiness somewhere else. And instead, she impacted the lives of all of his children and his grandchildren that'll never know him.
A lot of people are judged for having drug problems, and he was not perfect. He was not the worst person in the world. And I miss saying the word daddy. When I miss my kids not having a grandfather. Just want people to know that my father was a person. He had a beating heart. He was not perfect, but nobody is.
My dad was a giver, and he was the type to never say no. He would go above and beyond for anybody and everybody. I don't think she quite understood what she was taking away.
The cartilage in his neck was crushed. In order for that to happen, there had to be immense force used.
My dad was a giver, and he was the type to never say no. He would go above and beyond for anybody and everybody. I don't think she quite understood what she was taking away.
The cartilage in his neck was crushed. In order for that to happen, there had to be immense force used.
So
What seemed to be an attraction at first turned into an obsession.
I think she wanted to claim all the property, all the cars, the jewelry, the clothes. She wanted to have it all to herself without him in the picture.
This was a cold-blooded killer that wanted revenge.
On November 21st, 2007, police in Nassau County, New York, receive a frantic 911 call from a woman named Kelly Forbes.
Nassau Police Emergency Operator 421. Yes. Okay, you're gonna have to stop crying, sweetheart, so I can understand you. What's the problem?
Kelly says her husband, 50-year-old Michael Forbes, is unconscious on their bedroom floor.
Is he breathing?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, stop crying, okay?
I don't go to the bed.
Okay, all right, we're going to get somebody over there. Okay?
When paramedics arrive, they find Kelly and her young daughter waiting at the top of the stairs.
Kelly's hysterical. She's crying. She can't believe what just happened.
She's with her daughter and can barely form a sentence. The only thing she can do is point in the direction of the bedroom. But when they find Michael, he's unconscious, but still has a pulse. So they immediately begin CPR on him in an attempt to revive him and stabilize him.
But as they work to save Michael's life, the first responders realize they've been to this house and treated this patient before.
Just about a month prior, Michael Forbes had suffered a heart attack.
This was the very house that they had just been at. Police are wondering, is this what happened again? Did Michael sustain yet another heart attack?
Michael Aaron Forbes was born in 1957 in Brooklyn, New York. His parents raised him and his brother to appreciate the value of hard work.
From a young age, everyone around him felt he was very gregarious and just very charming. He had a paper route as a young child. All of the neighborhood people always said how business-minded he was at such a young age.
Michael and his brother, they were entrepreneurs at heart.
That work ethic served Michael well throughout his teens. But his ambitious nature eventually led him down a dangerous path.
In his 20s, Michael became enamored by the street life, unfortunately.
The 70s were wild in New York. Michael actually got into the drug game. Because Michael was that business-minded person, he not only sold drugs, he was the drug kingpin. That began a string of run-ins with the law.
He ended up spending a few years in jail.
Michael's time in prison convinced him to turn his life around. So, when he was released in the late 1980s, he found a new profession. He also found love.
My dad became a barber while he was in jail and got his master barber license. So my dad was working at a barbershop and started cutting my brother's hair. And that's where my parents, I guess their love story began.
I would see him every week, and we both liked the movies, so Michael would say, "You want to go to the movies?" And I'd say, "Sure, let's go." And, you know, we always had fun. He was a fun guy.
It was Nadine who made him really change his mind about who he wanted to be. He wanted to be a good man, but now he wanted to be a husband too. He wanted that happy life, that happy family.
In 1993, Michael achieved those goals with the birth of his daughter, Michelle.
My parents got married when my mom was 8 months pregnant with me. Instead of having a big wedding, they bought their first house.
That entrepreneurial spirit, she brought it back out in him, and she questioned him that, you know, why are you working for someone else? You're a great barber, you're business-minded, you should open your own shop.
I had an idea to name the barbershop Heads Up Barbershop. He said, you know what, that's a great idea. And so he named it that, and we went around the city, all over New York, and collected all these antique barber chairs.
Michael, he became the man that he'd always dreamed of being.
From that barbershop, he ended up investing in real estate and restaurants and just expanding his business in a huge way and becoming very wealthy.
For 10 years, his business thrived. But the marriage ultimately fell apart.
He told me, I had work to do in the barbershop. I had to, mop the floors. But I knew something was up. I ended up putting one and one together, and we were divorced.
My parents got divorced when I was 10. It went back and forth for court for a while. Like, you love your mother, you love your father. And it's very hard, but I would still see my dad every weekend.
As a wealthy bachelor in New York, it didn't take long for Michael to begin sliding back into some of his old habits.
With Michael's success, a little bit of the past Michael came back. The money, the fast cars. He was starting to venture back into the fast life once again, and the fast life came with women.
Within 2 years, however, life in the fast lane had taken a toll on Michael's health.
In early 2005, Michael had to have a stress test. He was having some health issues and had to see a doctor immediately.
His nurse was an attractive young woman from Trinidad named Kelly.
Here is Kelly soothing him through it and making him feel comfortable. So after all of that, he was just wowed by her.
She had the accent, she's just nice to look at. And he wanted to have her around, made him feel good, made him feel young again.
Kelly was more focused on work than on romance. She'd recently moved to the United States with her 5-year-old daughter, but Michael was persistent.
He would send flowers to her job, a lot of flowers, just bouquets, in an attempt to woo her, and it worked.
In September 2006, Kelly and Michael end up going on a date. And Michael, being Michael, pulls out all of the stops.
Pulled Michael Forbes to the hospital. Nassau County Police talked to his new bride, Kelly Forbes, to find out what happened.
Kelly is emotional and struggling to process everything that's happening and just trying to communicate effectively. And all she can say is that she did this to Michael.
Kelly says it all began with a disagreement that spiraled out of control.
Kelly tells police that her and Michael had argued the night before about the fact that they had only been married a short while, and he felt that she was devoting way too much time to her daughter and her family.
Kelly got upset and didn't want to argue in front of her daughter, and she told Michael, hey, look, we'll finish this later, just not in front of my daughter. Let's wait until she goes to bed. And Michael agreed.
Kelly says her 7-year-old daughter asked her to stay in her bedroom until she fell asleep. But Kelly accidentally fell asleep alongside her. When she got up several hours later, Michael was still waiting for her.
When Kelly went into the room, Michael was upset.
Michael is in a rage, screaming about how she's not a good wife, she's neglecting her wifely duties, and she suggests that she just leave if the relationship is not working for him. And he storms off in a rage.
Kelly says she eventually managed to get back to sleep, but the argument wasn't over yet. Around 7:30 a.m., she claims she woke up to someone standing over her. Before she could react, she was attacked.
Kelly says she was losing air quickly, and it felt like someone was strangling her.
Kelly says she realized that someone was Michael, and he was choking her with an extension cord.
Kelly's gasping for air and losing consciousness, and all she could think about is what will happen to her daughter if her husband kills her. So she kicks him in the groin and takes control of the situation, still with the extension cord around her neck, and somehow manages to get it around Michael's neck.
Kelly says this was a fight to the bitter end. They each were strangling one another. And Kelly knew whoever let go first was the one that was gonna die. Kelly continued to strangle Michael until he slumped onto the floor.
Kelly says it took her a few minutes to recover from the struggle. And when she realized Michael wasn't breathing, she panicked.
Kelly tells police that her friend was the closest one to their home, so she called him first. Her husband lay on the ground, unconscious. She strangled him. She was in shock, if you will. He immediately told her to call 911, and that's what Kelly did.
Kelly seems traumatized by the experience, but according to her, it's not the first time something like this has happened.
She said Michael was not only physically abusive, but was mentally and emotionally abusive to Kelly as well, and very controlling. Part of that control was Michael moving Kelly all the way to Long Island from Brooklyn, away from all of her friends, family, and work, forcing her to have to commute with no vehicle, with the intent that she would eventually leave her job and become a stay-at-home wife. When Michael asked that Kelly quit her job, she said no. She just was not the type to fully depend on a man. Her solution was to move back in with her family in Brooklyn.
Kelly says Michael tried to mend the relationship after he suffered his heart attack in mid-October. He bought her a car and promised her things would change, but they didn't.
Kelly says when she moves back in, the abuse not only continues, but it gets worse as Michael becomes more violent, hitting her, slapping her around, dragging her around.
Kelly tells police that after each violent episode, he showered her with gifts and told her how much he loved her and that it would never happen again. And Kelly believed him, so she stayed.
Kelly says she wishes now that she'd never come back in the first place. It's a terrifying story of domestic abuse.
The investigators checked police reports for signs of abuse, for anything that Kelly had possibly reported against Michael, any calls, anything at all, but there was nothing. There was no proof.
Police hope for an opportunity to hear Michael's side of the story. But within hours, that hope disappears.
Michael was rushed to the hospital where they administered CPR. Every life-saving technique they could do, that's exactly what they did. But Michael, he didn't make it. Michael was pronounced dead at the hospital.
There is no doubt that Kelly strangled Michael to death. The question left is, was it an act of self-defense or...
29-year-old Kelly Forbes has confessed to strangling her husband of 2 months, Michael Forbes. According to her, she did it to stop him from killing her. But detectives aren't convinced.
Listening to Kelly, police had a lot of red flags pop up. Alarm bells went off because this wasn't a typical domestic violence case. She didn't exhibit any signs of the typical abuse that they saw on a day-to-day basis. There were a couple of wounds on her hands, but nothing significant to the point where they believed that Michael Forbes had tried to kill her.
Kelly's only injuries was a thumbprint bruise on her wrist, a scratch on her arm, and a scratch on the back of her neck. A woman of Kelly's size fighting a man as large as Michael, you would think that she would have more injuries on her than what she had.
If Kelly truly was strangled, where was the proof? Where were the ligature marks around her neck that surely an electrical cord would leave?
The crime scene itself doesn't show signs of much of a struggle either.
You would think a fight like this in the home, you would see more tables broken, more lamps broken, maybe sofas turned over, but there was none.
They surveyed the house. It wasn't messy. There was nothing knocked over. It didn't look like a house of a domestic violence dispute had just happened.
Investigators are also suspicious of the fact that Kelly's 7-year-old daughter slept through it all.
Kelly says that she didn't scream during the dispute because she didn't want to wake up her daughter. She didn't want her daughter to be frightened and see her and Michael fighting. As a mom, I understand that. But her daughter, she didn't hear anything. For police, that seemed a bit odd.
Kelly says that she had to fight for her life, so it's very difficult to believe that there was no noise during the altercation.
There's also a gap in Kelly's timeline.
Kelly claims that she strangled Michael at 7:30 a.m., but she didn't call the police until 8:48 a.m.
She might still be in shock from the morning's events and misremembering the timeline. But Michael's autopsy raises even more questions.
The coroner reports that Michael did die of strangulation, that the cartilage in his neck was crushed. In order for that to happen, there had to be immense force used. And it had to have lasted a minimum of 10 seconds. Police wondered, with Kelly being such a petite woman, could she exert that amount of force?
How is it that someone who is 5'5", 130 pounds, can overpower a man who's 6'1", 250 pounds? One of the possibilities is that due to the heart attack that Michael had suffered a month before, the medication he was taking was making him weak and very lethargic, which would make this the perfect time to strike.
A toxicology report also finds traces of a prescription sleep aid in Michael's bloodstream, making it even harder to believe he could have engaged in a violent struggle. To detectives, it's becoming increasingly clear that none of this happened the way Kelly claims. So they decide to arrest her.
Police take her into custody, charging her with second-degree murder.
You have to picture the bottom of the Nassau County Jail. The jail is in the basement, and it's dark. It's almost like a bad movie where you see everyone behind the bars, just pacing back and forth, waiting for their case to be called. Kelly, she was crying, she was upset.
But Kelly continues to insist she's innocent. Knowing prosecutors will need more evidence to prove otherwise, Kelly's attorney immediately files for an arraignment hearing, leaving little time for the state to make its case.
In New York, you have some constitutional and statutory protections when you're being accused of a crime. At the time, and this was 12 years ago now, the prosecutor had to bring your case to a grand jury within 6 days.
The clock is ticking. Police have 6 days to gather enough evidence to indict Kelly or she goes free.
Nassau County Police believe Kelly Forbes murdered her husband, Michael Forbes. But they're running out of time to prove it. With only a few days left until the case goes before a grand jury, detectives interview Michael's friends and family, hoping they can shed more light on their relationship. According to them, Kelly's claims of domestic violence are completely fabricated.
I was married to Michael for 12 years. He was not controlling. He was not abusive.
It was actually Michael's family who tell police that Kelly is the one who changed after they got married. When they got back to the $1 million waterfront home, Kelly left immediately and went to Brooklyn.
Michael's parents would tell me that, Kelly wouldn't come home for hours and that, they wondered where she was all day.
Kelly always told Michael she was with her family. Just having come from Trinidad, she wanted to spend as much time with them as she could. But over time, Michael didn't believe her. Michael figured something was going on.
Michael's friends say he became convinced Kelly was cheating on him with other men.
These speculations of infidelity ensued many arguments between Michael and Kelly, which ultimately led her to pack her bags and go back to Brooklyn and move in with her family.
Michael was heartbroken, and that actual feeling of being heartbroken is what his family thinks caused his heart attack.
When Michael collapsed, Kelly wasn't even home. She was in Brooklyn, as usual. So he had to call his mother for help.
Michael's mother called me and she was crying. She said, Michael had a heart attack, Nadine. Do you think you can make it to New York?
He was admitted to the hospital and he was surrounded by his family. But it took Kelly a very long time to come and see her husband.
My dad's like, well, Michelle, this is Kelly. Kelly, this is Michelle. He introduced us, but she was on the phone the whole time.
She left a short while after, which made Michael's family very upset.
I remember my grandparents asking my dad, well, where's she going? Is she coming back? Like, just to make sure somebody was always going to be by his side, at least spend the night. We were up there for hours, and yeah, she left and never came back that day.
Michael's loved ones say after he was released from the hospital, he tried to win Kelly back. He bought her a brand new Mercedes so she could easily split her time between her family in Brooklyn and their home in Long Island.
Michael needed help. He had just had a heart attack. He needed his wife to take care of him. And he wanted his wife home where they lived, at the very house that he bought for her for the wedding. But Kelly was still not there.
Her conduct led Michael to believe she had an ulterior motive for agreeing to give their marriage another shot.
Before his death, Michael was sure that Kelly was just using him for his money.
After having grown up from poor beginnings, Kelly saw Michael as her meal ticket. This was a man that was 20 years her senior, wealthy, and he had a lot of health issues.
Personally, I think Kelly murdered Michael because she wanted everything to herself. All the property, all the cars, the jewelry, the clothes, she wanted to have it all to herself without him in the picture.
Seeking evidence of Kelly's infidelity, detectives tracked down the man she called immediately after strangling Michael, her friend, Jeremy.
When police questioned Jeremy, they discovered that he's not just a friend. They've actually been sleeping together.
He came right out and told them, Kelly and I are actually together. We've been intimate for a long time. Jeremy tells investigators that he actually met Kelly online. And Jeremy actually even admitted that he knew about Michael, but it didn't deter their relationship.
Kelly having her side affair going on showed that she didn't love Michael at all. and it was all about the money. She had chances to leave anytime. She could have left anytime.
When detectives asked Jeremy about Kelly's claims of domestic violence, he says he doesn't know anything about it.
Jeremy tells police that he's never seen any signs of abuse from Michael. Jeremy constantly saw Kelly naked. He never saw any marks, bruises, cuts.
Jeremy turns over his phone as evidence, and the first message from Kelly provides a telling clue.
Jeremy shows police text messages between Kelly and him. And the text message says, "I did it."
Jeremy says when Kelly told him what happened, he immediately told her to call an ambulance.
And Jeremy was the one that asked, "Hey, is he breathing? Does he have a pulse? Call 911. It was a common sense thing, and Jeremy couldn't understand and even said as much. "Why are you calling me? Hang up, call 911.
But the timestamp on Kelly's messages confirms an earlier suspicion.
Kelly claims that Michael attacked her at 7:30 a.m. But Kelly didn't call 911 until 8:48 a.m. Well over 30 minutes after she hung up with Jeremy.
The bottom line is, why did it take Kelly over an hour?
It's been 6 days since Kelly Forbes strangled her husband, Michael Forbes, to death. And the date for her grand jury hearing has arrived. Prosecutors believe new evidence has given them what they need to convince a jury it wasn't a case of self-defense.
Prosecutors try to prove that Kelly was a cold-blooded killer that wanted revenge for Michael trying to control her life.
Prosecutors argue Kelly thought she stood to inherit Michael's property and savings, and say her minor injuries and the fact that she waited an hour to call 911 speaks volumes.
Investigators have a theory that the reason why Kelly took so long to call 911 was that she wanted to make sure Michael Forbes was actually dead.
I think she was working on her alibi. I think she was trying to plan it out, her excuses. I think that she didn't like being married anymore, and that was her way out, and get paid at the same time. The house, the cars, the money.
But will it be enough for the jury to indict her?
When the prosecutors present their case to the grand jury, they actually ruled that there's not enough evidence to charge Kelly with murder. Kelly is released a free woman. She goes home, she resumes her normal life.
However, prosecutors aren't ready to admit defeat.
Rather than allow the grand jury to vote to dismiss, the prosecutor told the grand jury, hold on a second. And they left and they came back and presented additional evidence in a lesser charge, and that's how she was indicted.
Prosecutors have Kelly rearrested and charged with manslaughter.
Manslaughter means that Kelly intended to cause serious physical injury, and in the commission of causing serious physical injury, she caused the death of Michael Forbes.
7 months later, on June 2nd, 2008, the trial begins.
The prosecutor claimed that Kelly had grown so frustrated with the marriage that she wanted to kill her husband as a way out of the marriage.
No one in her family talked about Kelly ever mentioning being abused by Michael Forbes. But what they did say that Kelly discussed with them on a constant basis was her dislike for Michael. Her dislike for his health, her dislike for what he looked like, her dislike for his age. Everything disgusted Kelly about Michael Forbes, the man she married, the husband that she vowed to
We argued to the jury that it's not plausible to believe that a mother would wake up one night and decide that she's going to strangle her husband with her daughter 2 doors down. It just didn't make sense. And we can't find any evidence that Kelly intended to do that before it happened. What we did have evidence of was that Kelly had been assaulted that night. We did find bruising all along Kelly's body. And we found a story that Kelly told the police officers consistently, that he strangled Kelly first. Michael strangled Kelly first.
They also claim Michael's history of violence began long before he married Kelly.
What we learned in our investigation as Kelly's attorneys is that Michael had been convicted of some really violent crimes. When he was a younger man in Brooklyn, Michael was a high-level drug dealer who at times resorted to violence to make money.
Michael had actually spent time in prison for rape, for attempted murder, violent charges that actually proved that Kelly could be telling the truth.
The trial of 29-year-old Kelly Forbes has been going on for several days. The jury has heard compelling evidence that she killed her wealthy husband, Michael Forbes, to escape the marriage and keep his money. But now the defense has turned the tables by putting the victim on trial.
The reason it was important for the jury to know that Michael was a bad guy before he turned his life around, because we wanted to show that Kelly reasonably feared for her life when Michael was strangling her. And we also wanted to show the jury that this was not a random incident or an isolated incident of Michael being violent. In fact, Michael had a history of resorting to violence when he didn't get his way. When we told the jury about Michael's record, everyone was shocked. The judge, the prosecutor, everyone was shocked.
It's very likely that Michael did change from his past prior history with the amount of time that he's been in prison. At the same time, it's easy for some to never really let go of the fact of his past. This is who you are.
Kelly's attorneys believe it was her alleged affair with Jeremy that caused Michael to snap.
It could have been reasonable to think that Michael somehow found out about him and decided that his new, beautiful young bride with whom he's sharing his life was someone who he had to put in check. And we know the way that Michael puts people in check is through violence.
The defense paints Kelly as a young woman who was swept off her feet by an older man, only to discover his true nature after it was too late. The question is whether the jury will agree.
I was just thinking to my head, if you knew they had problems, why wouldn't you leave? You had a boyfriend, so you had access to leave. You had resources, you had brothers, you had siblings. Like, they could have helped move you out. You were able to live a whole nother life. You say my dad was abusive, but how abusive was he that you weren't scared to have a whole side life?
If she didn't love him anymore, just leave and don't come back. Yeah, but she figured if I kill him, everything will be mine.
On June 16th, 2008, after less than 4 hours of deliberation, the jury delivers their verdict.
And the jury came back with the verdict of guilty. When the verdict of guilt was read, Kelly screamed in the courtroom. And the reporters at the time remarked at the nature of her scream and how painful it sounded and how it affected everyone in the courtroom. This was the scream of a mom who was realizing that she would be in prison and that her daughter would grow up without her.
Kelly Forbes is sentenced to 21 years in prison. She will be eligible for parole when she's 50 years old. Her daughter will be 29. But Michael's friends and family will never get to see him again.
Hello. Vì cao su cho trẻ em bơi. Woo. Anh ơi, lên đi.
Nó hay cái đấy là để nó bị văng game ấy. Nó bị đấy. Mình bị đấy. Nếu mà anh không muốn để nó bật hack lên rồi chỉ phá hết mấy cái item đấy em. Đây nó bật một lúc là bị văng hết. Tất cả bên kia văng hết. Cách bây giờ tạm thời là xóa hết mấy cái item để cho nó không hiện thôi. Anh